For those of you who are just tuning in, you are watching Mom Hive Live. And, oh, yay! Oh my gosh, you joined right away. So here we are. Amazing. So people are joining. Look at your amazing backdrop. So welcome back to Mom Hive Live. I am Anjelika Temple. I am an artist, entrepreneur, mom to 2 forest mermaids. And today I am welcoming Courtney Klein, who is the founder and CEO of Stork. She's an amazing entrepreneur. She is a fashion icon, my personal fashion idol, let's say. She's a mom of 2, and I have been best friends with her for 25 years. So she is absolutely in my personal mom hive, and I am so excited to welcome Courtney to the show.
Thank you.
When I first met Courtney, she was able to really teach me about how wide a wide leg jean can be. And it can go beyond Jankos, it can go so far beyond. And now, of course, she runs a maternity fashion company. She is a tastemaker and all of these different things that you are going to learn about in the next 30 minutes. So, hi, Courtney. Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I've never done this before. I was like, woo, ah.
This is great. Oh my gosh. I love your backdrop. Everything's looking great. I like your haircut.
I know you haven't seen my new haircut yet.
I know.
It is.
It's great. I also did a self chop. So for those of the people that haven't known you for 25 years, can you start by telling us a little bit about your parenting style and your kiddos and that type of thing?
Yeah, sure thing. So I have 2 kids, Nell and Lou. Nell is 7 and Lou is 5. Parenting style, I'd say I don't really subscribe to one doctrine that you know me, I'm an obsessive reader. And so I think I take little pieces from here and there. And then, again, me, I tend to be somewhat anxious at times. So I think part of my parenting style is equipping myself with knowledge. And then the other half is just kind of stepping back and letting my kids do what they're going to do and not let them, not try to control it so much.
Yes. I love that. Well, that kind of connects right to the next thing, which is that you're this expert curator, right? And so you are collecting bits of knowledge. I think, way before kids, right? Remember Supply?
Yes.
Right? Where, Courtney is sort of known for, she always knows the best thing for whatever the thing is you need. And so, I think I would love for you to talk a little bit about the spreadsheet, that has helped so many mothers and, how this sort of curatorial ability of yours, just like having good taste, caring about things that are affordable and well-made, sort of like has carried through to everything you do.
Yeah, it's funny because I've always loved curating and being a curator. And I think part of that is just, people joke that I'm very, very good at Google. Like my one normal person superpower is that I'm really good at Google. And so I'm kind of obsessively researching everything all the time. And I have this massive bookmarks folder. And I think, I was originally passed this spreadsheet of things you may need when your baby arrives by another friend. And I got it. And then I immediately sort of put it into overdrive. And I've been sharing a version of this and updating it, from time to time for the last, 7 years now. And just, I passed it along to you and it has here's a crib that I really thought was great. Here's this, here's that. And, I think in terms of just where, I am in terms of community building or just thinking about kind of how that happened, particularly in the world of moms and motherhood. I think about that all the time because that's just what I do for work. I'm very deep in the motherhood realm at all times, both because I have kids and because I'm making products for parents and pregnant people. And so, I think one thing that was maybe different about my parenthood journey is that I was the first in our friend group to really have kids. And so I think I had to go out and find a lot of that. And then, most of my close friends, they have 4 and 5-year-olds now. So now I was kind of on that journey a couple years before everybody else. And so I was able to kind of get all that knowledge. So I do kind of sometimes find myself feeling like the den mother of new parents. Here's the one thing that you actually need. And, also part of that is trying to empower parents I joke that it's like the baby industrial complex. And it's like, you say you're having a baby and everyone's like, here are 20,000 things to buy for your baby. And it's really overwhelming. And in a lot of ways, it's not necessary, particularly now. You know, obviously there are items you want to put on your baby registry. And so, you know, I'll always hit the big ticket items. But there's a lot of stuff, you know, you don't know until your kid comes what diapers are going to work for you, or if your kid is going to be a pacifier kid, or if your kid is going to, you know, hate the pacifier. I had one of each. You know, you're not going to know how big your kid is. Some people said don't buy newborn clothes. My first baby was barely 6 pounds.
Oh, yeah. My 2-year-old is still in 12-month clothes.
Like, you know, so I think that there's just a lot of knowledge that I just have. And I don't think, you know, I'm an introvert, so I don't think I really set out to be the nexus of the, like, you know, a mom community, or, you know, be the like informal advisor for a bunch of mom friends. But I just kind of, via, you know, all the curating and just kind of being the first, ended up in that position. And now it's just kind of stuck.
Well, and I think there's something about it, because there's just, when I think about like motherhood and entrepreneurship, right? There's so many parallels. Like, you're managing a team, you're like going it alone, like you feel isolated. But there's something about the cross section between, I've noticed, especially with moms who are more entrepreneurial. It's like, if Courtney already researched this, I'm not going to spend time. Like, I'm delegating that research to her because she already did it. Yes. You know, there's something like efficient about it, because you know, even with like, you know, I have a mom text, which is like all the, you know, my daughter's best friends. And it's like, when one person buys a lunchbox, we're just all getting the same one in different prints, because like they already did the work.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit more about your mom hive and sort of what your support system looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I now have lots of moms who are friends, and, you know, all of my closest friends now are moms. So obviously I have what I think of as kind of like the inner circle and then the larger circle. And so, you know, I obviously go back and forth with all of my, you know, mom friends who, when I have a question, or, you know, something tough is happening with the kids, or, you know, someone may have gone through that before, I have this kind of like inner circle group. But then I'm also part of a larger mom's Facebook group that one of my close friends started. And, you know, that's been great, because I think it's 900 women, and it's just a much wider perspective. And also, you know, as I mentioned, because I was the kind of first one in this close friend group to have kids, there are things as like my kids get older that nobody's done yet. And I, you know, like as Nell's 7, she's in 2nd grade, like things are popping up that I can't necessarily ask my best friends about. But it's like amazing to be able to go to someone who has like a 15-year-old, and like, you know, and someone who has a 7-year-old, and someone who has a 9-year-old, and they've kind of been in that phase before. And I can get advice for things, you know, like school bullying was something that came up, or, you know, all those other things. So I kind of love this hybrid model of like the close friend and then the wider group for like a wider, more diverse perspective.
Yeah, I think there's something about it. I mean, like, kids are the great equalizer. Like, there's no way that you can sort of get around things that you won't expect to happen, right? Like, you can optimize about everything and be like the most peaceful, like great listener, like positive, disciplined parent. But like, when your kid starts waking up in the middle of the night and they're 4.5, I may have mentioned this on the last Mom Hive. It's a very current issue for me. You know, like, I'm pissed. Like, and it's so helpful to talk to other people and learn, like, oh, literally everyone's kid went through the same thing around the same age, because they're like, they start being afraid of the dark and they're afraid at night. And you're like, oh my gosh, like,
and
thank goodness.
Parenthood can feel really isolating sometimes. And so knowing that there are other people who are experiencing the same thing, especially, you know, in the age of, you know, we live in an age where like Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff is so popular that sometimes you can see this like really idealized version of motherhood and parenthood, and you feel like, am I doing it wrong? And having other people who, you know, have been like, I made mistakes too. Like, no one's ever going to be a perfect parent. That doesn't exist. Totally. And so, you know, reminding yourself that by, you know, having this support around you, I think is always really important.
And being a perfect parent doesn't serve your kids well.
No.
Like, then they're like, oh my God, like, I can never do this. You know, like, I think this has come up in a few conversations, like showing your entire range of emotions to your kids. Like, maybe not every single word that you'd say.
Oh, it was really interesting, because I read an article recently about like fighting in front of your kids and how, obviously you don't want to have like major knockdown, drag out fights, but actually like showing your kids that you have conflict and how you resolve it is actually really healthy. And that's something that like I had never considered. And I think back to your point about like being a whole person and presenting yourself as a whole person to your kids is really important.
Well, I've learned things from my kids, in that regard where, Anoki, her school is very like into emotions. And so she always starts by saying like, it hurt my feelings when like you said I couldn't wear my Elsa dress to school, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's when you go with the like, my job as the parent is
of course, but it's funny because I've started to use her language. Like even if I'm talking to her, if I'm talking to Dave about something, like I'm like, this is how this made me feel, and now I'm acting out. Basically.
That's funny because I also recently read, about how expecting perfection from your kids is really detrimental, and like thinking about how like, our kids are having a tantrum and our like initial gut reaction is to like shut it down. But like, we should be able to allow our kids to have a bad day and be like, look, these feelings are totally valid. Like, it's okay to feel, Lou this morning was like, I'm not having a good morning. I feel sad. Like there's nothing you can do. Like, I'll take some extra hugs, but like, this is just how I feel. And I think that there's like part of you as a parent that wants to be like, you're not sad. Like everything's okay. And I think
totally
that impulse and saying instead, hey, like those feelings are really valid. Like what can I do to help? Like I'm here to help instead of trying to like make them feel something different.
Totally. Okay, wait, I just got a ping that my audio is weird. Is it weird for you? Or am I like going in and out?
You went out for like a hot second, but now you seem to be back.
Okay. Well, if you're listening and I'm going in and out, tell me, and I might try to adjust something, but I'm going to keep it as it is for now. So shifting gears to Stork, your company, obviously it's at the cross section of entrepreneurship, motherhood, fashion. Tell the viewers a little bit more about Stork and your mission.
Yeah, sure. So I founded Stork in 2014, or I guess we launched Stork in 2014. I started working on it in 2013. And, at the time, some friends and some, the very first family were getting pregnant and having kids. And, this comes up a lot, that there are the sort of lack of maternity options out there. Everyone's like, oh, there's nothing really out there that I can say, like, I love. And I started, at the time I was kind of in a transitional period in my career. I had just moved to San Francisco and I was, I had just moved to San Francisco. Sorry, my mom keeps calling me.
Oh my God.
I was like, I put on
Classic.
She's one of my contacts. And so if she calls like multiple times in a row, I'm like, Mom, get out of here. I'm doing something. Oh, how many times did my mom walk in my room when we were teens and we were like, get out of here, Janet.
All the times. We need privacy.
Yeah, it's like the same thing that's happening now that we're like older.
Yeah.
So they, everyone was saying that they, so I was in this transitional phase where I had been doing one thing in New York, moved to San Francisco, was looking for something else to do. And I started, digging into the maternity wear market and motherhood. And I wasn't a parent at the time yet. And it was just a lot of really fascinating trends, like the age of, and again, none of this is surprising now, but 7 years ago, this felt really interesting, and particularly not being, a mother myself, was that the age of first-time parents was increasing steadily, and there were more babies than ever before in American history that were born to women over 30, and that every year that a woman stays in the workforce, her salary increases by X percentage. And thinking about all these trends and looking at all these trends and then looking at the offerings, and, a lot of the offerings that were available in the mainstream maternity market at the time had been the same for the last, decades, 20 years, and things hadn't evolved and shifted to this new consumer mindset of someone who wanted higher quality clothes, who wanted silhouettes. I think, and this better than anyone, when you get pregnant, there's so much shifting and changing around you that maintaining your identity and your style is actually really powerful. And so that's sort of what the foundation was for Stork, was what are the pieces, these basic pieces that we can create that you can style with your regular wardrobe. So we launched with this 4-piece maternity capsule collection, which we still sell today. It still remains.
I still use it, and I'm 2 years postpartum. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing that was, when we started doing, in my prior career, I did a lot of research. And so when we started researching and talking to women who were pregnant, everything kind of had gadgets, and like, there was just a lot that could be done to make maternity clothes feel really normal, instead of like pushing you to the back of the store to look at these things that you're like, an empire waist and like pink and purple, like that's not me. Like what can I have that feels like me and feels really great on my body and can support me through, like you said, you're still wearing yours 2 years later, from the day you find out you're pregnant to, all the way through real life. This is clothes. It's just clothes. It's regular clothes, but it's just optimized for where you find, the stage you find yourself in right now.
How do you feel like the perception of pregnant women has changed over the years, or even like self-perception? Go either way.
Interesting. I think there have been, that's like, we could spend like,
I know,
hours talking just about that.
Well, the next question, I'm going to really put you on a soapbox. So
okay,
get ready.
Great. I love it. I think I can talk, specifically about like from the style perspective, it's really interesting because if you look historically, for a long time, maternity clothes was meant to like, it was all very tenty, and it was meant to like hide the bump, and it was meant to be, like keep everything very modest. And then, it was that way through like until the 90s. And then in the 90s, celebrity culture became more prominent, and that drove, a difference in the way that style, like Liz Lang was incredibly popular. And instead of things being, instead of hiding the bump, it became more about celebrating the bump. And so I think we started to see more of that. And then now it's really about, and I'm hoping into the future, it's like normalizing motherhood. Like, it's not something to be hidden. It doesn't have to be driven by celebrity culture, but there is just this like normalization of parenthood the category.
Yeah, that's so funny because it's almost like it swung the other direction where like everyone, I wore a lot of skin tight pregnancy outfits because I was like feeling myself for both my pregnancies. I was like,
Oh yeah.
And, but you almost like, it almost went too far where like, if you're pregnant, you like need to be showing it off. And so I think it feels like it's like,
we never use the word like bump. Like that feels like very organizing to me.
Totally.
Like you're a person. You're still a person. The bump. Yeah.
The bump. Oh my gosh. So I know that you at Stork, you've had images flagged for being sexual, inappropriate, all of these things. Like, tell me more about that and sort of how absurd it is. How absurd is that?
I think this has been something that we as a company have talked a lot about, and it's something actually like we just launched some new products this week, and they all are caught up right now in Facebook disapprovals. So it's not something that we have ever resolved, but I think it is interesting to think about like this idea of what are we okay with in terms of how we show mothers. So in 2018, we redid all of our imagery on the site. We cast, we've always, and this is going to sound crazy, but we've always, since the company started, used pregnant models. A lot of maternity brands, you'd be surprised, don't actually use pregnant models. They use regular straight models that have a prosthetic bump, which is crazy because your body does so much changing. So we moved, we've always used pregnant models, but we moved, as we got feedback from our customers, just there's so many different ways the body can be during pregnancy is like really changing that. And so we did like a big casting, and we redid all of our brand imagery to showcase lots of different stages, lots of different styles of parenthood, etc. And as part of that, we also felt really strongly that we needed to show our product, like show women how our products worked. So if we're going to have a nursing bra, we need to show how you nurse in the nursing bra. Like that is something you should probably know about when making this purchasing decision. So once we started using that imagery in advertising on Facebook, we were just getting a string of disapprovals that this imagery was too sexual, sexually explicit. And I think the thing that's really interesting, or like that I find really difficult, is that we see on Facebook all the times, boobs and bellies and butts advertising lots of different things. And, I have a catalog that I keep track of things I've been advertised that are, showing more skin. I get it. It's very hard to determine in an algorithm what gets shown to people on the internet. But on the flip side, that algorithm also reflects what we as a society think about certain things. So like motherhood, like, can mothers be shown this way? Can we show skin and moms? Like, it felt to us, and it continues to feel like us, that we're being targeted somewhat because of the way that we're showing moms. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, for us, we've been thinking a lot, or like the thing we say is like, there's nothing about parenthood or motherhood that you should be ashamed of ever. And by validating breastfeeding or a belly to not being able to be shown on places like Facebook in ads, etc., it to me indicates that there's something inherently shameful there, or something to be ashamed of, or that, you know, it's too sexual and like mother shouldn't be sexual. There's just a lot, I think, culturally wrapped up in that. But yes, these disapprovals, despite our best efforts with Facebook, we're still riddled with them every week. But so we're not going to change, and we've they've given us things that we can do to stop this from happening. But I think we're willing to keep fighting this fight for as long as it takes. Yeah.
Keep pushing that envelope.
Yeah.
The bump. Okay. So switching gears now, back to your kids. So you have this great sense of taste, your own. And you like to curate everything, and everything is just so, like, if you ever see photos of Courtney's home, or anytime, even when she goes camping in like a minivan that she purchased, she painted it like terracotta color. Like, everything is so beautifully curated. But you also allow your kids to be free spirits. So how do you sort of, foster their sense of style and their sense of self-expression when you have such a sort of tight sense of taste yourself?
Yeah, it's definitely been a learning process. I think you've obviously heard a lot of these stories, but I think, I am somewhat of a control freak. Some people say I over-optimize. I like to optimize. And, I think figuring out that push-pull, like, you'll remember before Nell was born, I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. I made everyone buy everything in white. When she was born, it was all beautiful neutrals, and she only wants to wear every color, hot pink tutus. Even though I was constantly giving her the
earth tone.
Yeah, her neutrals for the first 2 years of her life, and then she was like, no, this isn't me. And I've definitely had to let go, I think, of my own personal aesthetics in a lot of ways. I think the other thing is just something that I've been working on is when to say no, and really trying only to say no when it really matters. And so giving them spaces, we have a basement in the house and then their room, and they're basically allowed to do anything in those two spaces that they want to do. And there's nothing precious in those two spaces.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can be ruined. They drew all over each other's faces and bodies last night with a pen that they snuck in there. It happened. It's kind of funny. But I think I've definitely, I do control how many toys come in the house. That is still, Nell really wanted this, what kind of animal? A groundhog? This groundhog stuffed animal that she saw, and she was pining over it. And so I told her that if she traded me 10, we were overloaded with stuffed animals. If she traded me 10 stuffies that we would donate, then she could get this animal.
Totally. I love that.
And I think I am pretty controlled about what goes in and having to take stuff out. And, we're constantly kind of taking stuff out. But, I let her have a Barbie. That was a huge,
Ooh, that feels like a big milestone.
That was a really big milestone that I was really hemming and hawing about. And then, I think I have to balance my own personal taste or beliefs, and then also allow them to be kids, because they aren't me. They don't have the same taste as me. And it's not fun if your parent is following you around, telling you not to do this or not to do that all the time.
Totally. They're going to find it somewhere, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we had Barbies, so.
I know.
We live to tell the tale,
We're okay.
Barbie's great. It can be, There's some things that are problematic, but, Okay. Also, just speaking about your kids and your family, I know that you love making Halloween costumes. It's your big creative activity, energy explosion. Tell me about some of your, this is sort of just like fun. Tell me some of your recent Halloween costumes and like what inspired them and how the kids are involved.
Yeah. So, I have to be careful what books we read or like what we're into right before Halloween.
Oh, totally.
2 years ago, last year was really funny because Nell was really into mushrooms. So she wanted to be a mushroom because she had like all these mushrooms. So we did that. Like we did a whole woodland theme last year with the kids. She was a mushroom. I was moss. Lou was a porcupine. And Zach was a red eastern newt, I think. Something very specific. Yeah, I think, I get, like, you and I met because we both, like, we're super creative and we love creativity. And I think as I've gotten older, trying to figure out where that fits into my life. Yeah. And so I think everybody knows that I love Halloween. So it's like I carve out, like, this whole creative space for, like, 3 weeks to work on everybody's costumes. And, so, like, last year, I was really into mushrooms. 2 years before that, both kids were really into volcanoes, so we were volcanoes. And then when they were littler, obviously I could like make them be whatever. They wanted. So like Nell was, for her first Halloween, she was Nell Armstrong. So that was
so good. I was just looking at that because Anoki wants to be an astronaut and wants Dave to be a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And she wants me to be planet Earth. I was like, fine.
If I must. Yeah, I think I love getting to use all of my like creative skills that, I don't usually have the time, but I think because I've boxed it, like every year, everybody knows that like, I'm going to need like this amount of time. And that's when I get all my creative.
So good.
Freshen out.
Okay. I'm going to switch to rapid fire and then we'll have one more question and then we're done. It's almost 12:30. Okay. What's the weirdest place you ever pumped? I know it's been a while.
It's been a while. So we used to share an office with a florist and a jewelry maker. So it was like full stop, like you get your wedding flowers and you get your engagement ring, you get your wedding flowers and you come over to me and you get all your maternity and parenthood stuff. So in that office, I used to pump just surrounded by like tons of buckets of flowers.
That is amazing. And of course, that sounds like a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
What's a recent proud mom moment that you can share?
Being cooped up with our kids for the last, whatever that was, 2 years, where our kids were not in school and we didn't have childcare for, 14 months of that, I think. I got to spend a lot of time with them and I just was really proud of like how cool they are. I don't know. Normally I just like get to see them at the end of the day for like an hour in the morning before they would get off to school. And I think I was just really impressed and excited. And again, like I probably have only this much to do with it, but they're very creative and how they related to each other. There were just a lot of moments where I felt myself being like, wow, like my kids are awesome.
I love that.
You see them and you're like hustling them out the door in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Putting them to bed, which is like not my favorite at all. Like you see them in 2 moments that they're not their best. And so, the silver lining with spending all that time with them was like just seeing how cool they are.
Yeah.
And I think that was, proud. A lot of proud moments.
I love that. What is a funny or embarrassing story you can share? Mom story or kid story?
Oh, man. I don't know.
Recent.
Recent.
It doesn't have to be recent.
Yeah. I'm sure there are like a whole host of like embarrassing moments that have happened during parenthood. I mean, it's like, you're learning on the job for sure. So there have been many, parenting fails. Like I dropped Nell, like a bee stung me and I like dropped Nell almost when she was like 4 years old. Like I've had a lot of those. But I think in terms of my kids being embarrassing, they're embarrassing all the time. And I'm trying to, again, adjust my mindset so that, look, we were all kids. We've all done embarrassing things. Yeah. Like, let's just stop being embarrassed about our kids. Unless they're doing something obviously like terrible, but like most kid stuff, I'm just like, and again, as I said, like, this, I can be like anxious or overly optimized. And so just letting go of that embarrassment around things. Like if my kid's crying,
let it go.
Look, we got to get somewhere too. Like they're only like, we all have, same options of like getting from A to B. I've really tried to just internalize like, this is a moment, it's happening.
I love that.
I'm not going to feel shame or embarrassment after.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, last question. What is the greatest gift or piece of advice another parent has given you?
So before Nell was born, a friend of mine gave me the advice, which continues to be my favorite parenting advice that I've ever received, and I think about it all the time. He said to me, take any port in a storm. And it's like the piece of advice I repeat to anyone. So a friend of mine, she just had a baby. She was like, she hasn't slept, her baby does not sleep. She's like, if I get a snoo, is my kid and she was hemming and hawing about getting the snoo. And I was like, look, take any port in a storm. No one's going to judge you. You're in the midst of the open water. Go with the snoo. That is your port in the storm. And feel no guilt about it. And I think about that, there are things that, with Nell, I ended up having to supplement with formula, and at the time it felt like such a failure.
Same. Yep.
And I was just so it was so emotional. And then I kept saying that mantra to myself, look, take any port in a storm. This is the port in this storm. Okay, move on. And I think that has continued to be something that I have shared, and that I still think about myself, during the pandemic, my kids went from watching no TV to watching at least an hour or more every day. And it's just look, this is unprecedented. Any port in a storm. I'm not going to be able to be the perfect parent right now. I'm not going to be able to enforce the screen time that I might be able to when it's the best of times. And I think adjusting and repeating that all the time is definitely one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten.
I love that, because I feel we create so many arbitrary barriers and rules because it's we want things to be just so. And I think, to your point, it's if the groundhog is gonna make her so happy. Anyway, okay. Well, we are over time. Thank you, Courtney. It was so wonderful to have you here. Make sure you're following @Stork for all of your maternity essentials, and for any pregnant friends, I send them the capsule anytime someone is pregnant. I'm capsule collection, here you go. The leggings are the softest leggings on the planet, and I'm waiting for you to make non-maternity someday.
Well, I have some new sport stuff that I'm going to get with pockets, which was
Stork Sport just launched. Tune in next week for Mom Hive. We will talk to yet another amazing badass mother, and thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.